Are you getting tired of big tech having all of your data, all of your contacts, all of your calendars, all those types of things? I know that a lot of people are moving away from Google services, Microsoft services, Apple services, and there's been a lot of decrement towards privacy. But if you're stuck in one of these situations and you're like, I have no idea what to do, this video today is going to be for you. Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Over here we try and teach people how to take control of their computer systems back and other things that are going to benefit them moving forward in life. And we're going to talk about things here that are going to boost your self-confidence, restore control back into your hands, and mostly get away from big tech. Now we're going to have some good timestamps in the video. If you're like, okay, I just installed this thing and I want to know how to sync this thing up with my new phone, there will be a timestamp for that down below. If you want to be like, hey, I just bought this cool little Raspberry Pi here and I want to know how to build a server on it, timestamp right down below. But first, we're actually going to cover some of the philosophy, why you might want to do this. We're going to talk about some solutions, so it might be a good 10-15 minutes before we get to those builds, but some of you might find this very interesting or compelling reasons why. So we're going to go ahead and walk through these. The first problem is syncing with big tech. We have a lot of implications. Number one is they are starting to force us to use their services, and as we give them more and more of our data, what is happening is they are now utilizing our data for their own purposes. This is not the good positive stuff entirely. It's not all necessarily negative. There is certainly something we get out of giving our data, but they also get a lot out of it as well. And we have to have a marketplace where I can say, I don't want to participate. And we can't use our services for free and then say, well, you can't gain anything from this. You just have to give everything to me for free, and I'm not going to give you anything back. Those are certainly some things. Now, the problem is that many people are relying on big tech for all of their contacts, all of their calendars. Their life would shut down if Google did not exist. I'm going to use the word Google here. This could be, you might be syncing your information with Google, you might be syncing it with Microsoft, you might be syncing it with Apple. Those are the three ones. Of course, you could do something like Proton, which is starting to have all these as well, which has some of the similar issues. They're just not as huge on the borrowing your data for all of their purposes that they want. I still don't have a Proton account, and I've tested them a couple of times. I am a do-it-yourself kind of guy. I have access to servers, so I do all this kind of stuff on my own and have done so for years. Understand this, guys. In the last 8 years, I have not synced a single contact with Google. I've not used a single calendar with Google, none of that stuff. And I've had syncing calendars and I've had syncing contacts all this time. And that's what this video is. Now, why do some people not want to be involved in this? Well, sometimes people just don't want Google to have the information. That's valid. Equally valid, what if your account simply gets deleted? This actually happened to a friend of mine. It was actually a person that runs one of the conferences I did some teaching for. So she sends out the initial round of contracts and I reply and she's like, thanks for applying because I lost your email address. What happened is her Google account was inexplicitly deleted. Now, of course, because there's no money involved, this is a free Gmail account. They don't have any form of customer service. You have no way of going in and reversing a decision. She literally lost her calendars. She lost her contacts. She lost her emails. Everything gone because they simply deleted her account. I don't think she's a retired lady that runs a conference. I mean, that's not exactly out there doing something crazy or even remotely nefarious other than, talking about Jesus or whatever on the emails. Who knows? Now, what other reasons? What if your account is probed for a search? I'm thinking of geofence warrants. You could simply be walking down the street, some bank robbery happens 20 minutes later, and all of a sudden you're caught up in a geofence warrant. Now, some courts have ruled geofence warrants are lawful, some of them have ruled they're not lawful. So it's really kind of hit and miss over which way it is. Is it lawful or not? Who knows? And so we have to consider that. What if just politically you're persecuted for your beliefs and they do that? I mean, there's a number of reasons you might want to get your stuff off of Google. That's for sure. Now, as we move into part 2 here, we have to preface this by saying what we're going to do, taking back control, requires us to take back control not only of our just our data, but the learning processes. You see, we have given ourselves over to these big tech groups. We have given it all over. And as we have given it all over, we have become less intelligent where it comes to using data services and things like this. We just don't know how to do a lot of these things because they made it so easy. That's how they got us. They got us through convenience. We have lost the basic thought processes necessary to manage our lives. We've lost the basic thought processes of backups. We've lost the basic processes of having an address book. And what if your whole Google account gets deleted? Do you even know your mother's phone number to give her a call? Some people don't. It's very interesting. So the big companies got us by their convenience, and then they are utilizing that data through monetization. They lock us in, making it more difficult to switch. Now, Android is pretty easy to switch away from. Apple is pretty hard to switch away from, and I don't know exactly where Microsoft is. Although being that Microsoft syncs well with things like Outlook, and I'm guessing you can probably export your contacts. So I imagine Microsoft is easy to switch from, but I don't know for sure. I know Android is easy. You can go into your contacts on an Android phone. You can share a VSC file. That VSC file is the common file format on any operating system to manage contacts in a local file. You can take that thing here on Linux. You can install that into either K-Contacts or GNOME Contacts. You can import that file and have access to all of your contacts locally. That is all available on an Android phone. If you do not have access to that little file, you should probably save a copy, even if you're not going to move away from Google, because you can have this in the event they ever delete your account. They can't delete that local file from your computer. Now, that being said, they utilize all of this data to monetize it. They want to know our connections. They want to know all of our meta connections. They can make assertions based on what's on our calendar and the information we plug into there. So as we start looking at other home-based solutions, they are going to require a little bit more management. But it's not like an insane amount. It's not like we're going to be spending our entire evenings every single day or even every single week just doing management on stuff. These things really take care of themselves. And depending on which implementation you're doing, you may require more or less maintenance depending on what you are doing. But as you walk through these steps, you are going to gain a major boost in your confidence, knowing that you are in control of your data. You're not giving that data up to the big tech companies. Now, it is also, let me say this on the outset, it is very, very possible for a non-techie person to do these things I'm talking about. Some of these ones, in this case here, it's a simple matter of flashing a card onto this that you download from the internet and turning it on. Okay, this is not highly complicated things. Now, it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, and that's why I tell people don't completely delete your Google account and go, I'm going this method here, without doing a trial run. Remember this, even I spent 5 years slowly migrating all of my processes to Linux. I'm 100% Linux now, and I've been 100% Linux for about 4 years, I think. I spent a number of transitional years where I still was doing my day-to-day job on a Windows computer and then slowly migrating over. But since I think 2001, I went 100% Linux. I haven't booted into a Windows computer, and I mean, other than this computer I just bought to put Linux on it for somebody. I haven't booted into Windows. I can't remember. Maybe a year. I can't remember. Mac. I actually just traded my Mac for these wonderful new microphones I'm using because I didn't really have a need for my Mac anymore. I haven't touched that in over a year. And so it's a slow process, and I'm going to encourage you to walk through that process and learn it, and don't just ditch everything. We're going to get into how you can do that near at the end. So now we're going to talk into the pros and cons of a local server versus a cloud server. All right, so you can do this on a local server or a cloud server. Me personally, I am doing these on a cloud server. I know a lot more about cloud technology, the infrastructure, and how to manage it. I would encourage you to test this out on a local, although I will admit a local can be a little bit harder. The reason, it has fewer implications if you goof something up if you're doing it locally. All right, if you have a cloud server out there and you misconfigure something and the whole world can get into your stuff, that's a little bit more of a challenge than if it's on some little isolated device on your network that nobody can get to, okay? So we're gonna talk about that, but we're gonna break this down. We're gonna talk about the cloud servers, pros and cons, and the local servers, pros and cons. And there's probably more. If I missed something, please let us know in the comments down below. Let us know cloud server pro, cloud server con, local server pro, local server con. That'd be really useful information for people wanting to scan the comments down below. So when we're talking about cloud server, I'm running my main production one. It's actually on cPanel, which I would not recommend. It doesn't work as well. You lose a few security implications. Although mine still passes all of NextCloud's security protocols, it still is a little bit harder to run. Way easier on either DigitalOcean. Of course, you can use my affiliate link there on the screen, which is tlm.li/DOH. That's going to give you $200 in credit, good for 60 days. You can spin this up and try it for free for 60 days to decide if you like it or not. So you can also use Linode or any other cloud server. Now on Linode and on DigitalOcean, you can go into their marketplace, search for NextCloud, push a button, and have it. That's how easy it is to set this up. Now you will need, this is one of our cons, you will require a domain name. I'm going to get into that in a little bit. I want to get through the pros and then the cons of each one. So let's talk about the pros of the cloud server. The biggest pro is it works everywhere at all times. Whether you're on cellular data, your local Wi-Fi, your friend's Wi-Fi, if it is a cloud server based NextCloud instance, you can access that from anywhere. NextCloud itself is a very secure application, so it works well. And so you can access this from everywhere. There's never a lag in your contact syncing, in your calendar syncing, your data syncing. It is all there. It is also easier to automate the backups. If you're doing this on a production server, both Linode and DigitalOcean have the option. You click the button and it will do a very comprehensive backup strategy. It's going to let you know when the backup is done. It's going to let you know if there's any errors. And if there is ever an issue, you can go into your panel, push one button, and boom, restore to the last good backup. So it makes backups a little bit easier, but again, I'm not a huge fan of all of the automation. It also comes with more features. The instance I have on this little Pi we're going to talk about, they are actually limited in the features it can use to make sure that this has a sole purpose. We're going to sync our phone with syncing our data, syncing our calendars, syncing our contacts. You're talking about a cloud server. You can do a full documents, a Google Docs replacement. You can do a full network conferencing stuff. You can do mapping. You can turn on a mapping tracking system and keep tabs on your family in a completely privacy focused way. Everything's entirely on yours. Way more features in the cloud instance. But there are some cons. Your data is still on another company's servers, but it's not a server designed for contacts. Like Google Contacts, oh, we have contacts. We know exactly what to do, and this can be part of some form of advertising scheme. All right, so you have that as an option. Now, when they don't know what you're really using it for, you spin up a NextCloud instance, it's way harder to access that data and to utilize it nefariously. Just understand you still have data on somebody else's servers. It's just not what that server is specifically for, so it's easier to protect your privacy using it. I still consider a cloud service, a cloud provider installing your own encrypted instance of NextCloud much more secure than using Google. All right, the second con is that it does have a higher cost. To get the full featured NextCloud, you're going to be paying roughly 60, 70, 80 bucks a month because it requires a ton of extra memory and resources and things like this. You also are going to pay if you want more than 30 gigabytes of data space, which many people want more than 30 gigabytes of data space. You're going to pay a lot more money for those instances on a cloud server. Now, the other factor is the server space. Okay, we already talked about that briefly. If I'm doing a local instance, I can get any hard drive like this, 3, 4, 5 terabyte hard drive, plug the bad boy in, call this my data repository, and I have very low cost. I've not spent a lot of money. So the server space, and then extra, you have to buy a domain name to work with a NextCloud and a cloud server instance because it has to be fully secured. You have to make sure you have that SSL. You're not getting that SSL without a domain name. So you're going to have the extra cost of that, an extra account to purchase and manage the domain name in addition to the cloud server. So you're looking at paying some extra money for your privacy. Now, if you're like, I want the cloud server, I have a full guide setting up a cloud server, so we're not going to talk about that in this video, but that guide is less than a year old. Setting up a full cloud server, I believe that's using the Docker system on probably DigitalOcean. So you can go ahead and have a look at that video, which I have linked down below. Now let's talk about the local server. Now I'm going to be doing this local server on a 4 GB Raspberry Pi 4, and this works great. It does not max out the memory. The only limitation I'm having is this USB drive I'm using for external storage is horrible. I knew it was horrible. It has on my list of drives to be thrown away very, very soon. So just be aware of that. The quality of the drive. If I were to plug this drive in, this thing would work amazing. So that's something to keep in mind. You can also, however, do this on any spare computer, which means you could go to a pawn shop, you could get the lowest spec computer that can run NextCloud in a server, you could turn it on, plug it into an Ethernet port, and sit it in the corner and barely ever touch it. And that is a master repository for all of your files. So that is what we're seeing over there. Now, your pros, way lower cost. One of these Raspberry Pis is, I think, 40 to 60 bucks now. The brand new 5 with 8 GB is still only 80. So we're talking about a fairly low cost. You might find a computer at a pawn shop, or a Penn State University has, many universities have a store where you can go in and buy old, out-of-date hardware. You can go buy one of those. It does not take a lot to run these systems. You can do it fairly cheaply. Also, if you're trying to expand your storage, much lower cost to use one of these than to pay a cloud server for the extra storage space. Also, a local server is way less prone to hacking. You don't need the domain name. You don't even need a valid SSL. You just have to be aware there's going to be some warnings. Should we trust this certificate? Just hit the answer yes. Trust this self-signed certificate, because the thing is only on your local network. It is not out there on the internet. It is going to be perfectly fine to use that. The other major pro, every bit of your data is in your local house, which means you own everything, you control everything, nothing is in a cloud, nothing is anywhere except on your specific devices. Now, this does mean you need to make backups of these. There are ways to automate the backups on the Raspberry Pi edition of NextCloud that makes it easy to rsync it to another computer on your server, or even up to a cloud drive should you want to do that. The cons of using the local server. Number one, way fewer features. The NextCloud on the Raspberry Pi does not have documents. It does not have conferencing. It does not have a lot of the other features that makes it a full business suite. But if we're just talking about taking control of your calendars, your contacts, and your files on your phone, i.e., I take my phone, I run around the world, I'm doing whatever, sending text messages, taking cute little pictures, saving contacts, saving calendar appointments. I come home at the end of the day, I pull up the app, I push the sync button, and boom, all of that stuff is synced into my local network, which means now my local computer has it, the phone has it, it's backed up in my server backups. If we're talking about that, very easy to do. You don't need the extra features. Now, the other con, syncing and cloud data access is only going to work on the home network, with a little asterisk there. I'll get to that asterisk in a second, which means that you do not set your phone to constantly be syncing. You turn auto syncing off, because if it tries to auto sync when you are not in your house, you are going to get an error. It either can't connect it, or some other error is going to pop up because it can't access the information outside of that, which means that you're going to be limited on your backups. If you drop your phone in the number 2 drain, then, at that point in time, you have lost anything that is not synced into that cloud backup. Now, here's a little asterisk. You can still access that if you set up a local VPN. I have a video on setting up a local VPN. It is now about 4 or 5 years old, but I believe it is still accurate. I did that on a Raspberry Pi Nano. That is a $20 board. And what I used to do is if I was leaving the house for more than a day or two, I would plug that guy in, I'd push the power button, and now I can access all of my network servers when I am not at home. If you do that, you can still sync your contacts, your calendars, and your files when you are on the road. Now, that methodology requires you to poke a little hole in your router at home, which is secure as long as that VPN maintains its security. I will note that several commercial routers now do have it possible for you to create an open VPN server directly on the router with the click of a button. You're going to check the manufacturer for your router to know if it can do that. I run pfSense. I can actually do that. I think many of the other ones have that availability. The other issue with the cons of a local server, it isn't necessarily, but it can be harder to set up. On the Pi, super easy. You download the file, you burn it onto the SD card, and you power this thing on, and you run through the configuration menu. That's the difficulty of that, which obviously is not hard. So with this, what we're going to do is we are going to walk through preparing a local setup on a Raspberry Pi. So here is what you're going to need. You need a Raspberry Pi, obviously, and you need an SD card to burn it onto. This is a 64 gig SD card, and if you're going to be putting all of your data on this SD card, it will make doing backups in some ways easier. You might pull this guy down once a month, pull out the SD card, and simply make an image of it. Or you have the option to save all of your data, which is the important part, onto any external device, in which case you can take this device and you can plug it into your computer, and accessing the files with, I believe it is the NextCloud. It's either the NextCloud user. I will clarify this when we get to the step in the video here. It is either the NextCloud user or it is the administrative user of the account. You can actually access all of those files. So I think it's actually your NextCloud user, because I believe it is encrypted to the NextCloud user's account setup. You're going to want to use a network cable. You do not want to be trying to run Raspberry Pi NextCloud instance on a Wi-Fi on your local network. It's not as reliable. In fact, I believe that the Pi edition actually blocks the Wi-Fi from being used. It considers it a security risk. Somebody could come in and snoop on the connection. Hardwire it into your router, and that'll be pretty good. Of course, in my instance, I'm using a USB drive as my data file. I would not use a flash drive like this. I'm just doing it for example purposes, and that little thing and this on Linux look identical. So use something like this, an external hard drive, because an external hard drive has a life way longer than this and is going to be a lot more reliable. In fact, this particular drive, since I know it's already on its way out, is having a hard time writing large files, whereas the SD card and the regular hard drive does not have that issue. So you do need to make sure you have your Pi or a computer, your SD card, or whatever you're running your computer off of. You need a USB or a flash drive for your data, and you want a network Ethernet cable because you want to be able to hardwire in. You are going to have to set it up the first time by plugging a keyboard into your Raspberry Pi and attaching it to your monitor. What I did in my setup here, I'm going to show you here shortly, is I plugged it in, just did the minimum thing to set up an SSH server and my main account, and then we took this guy off the monitor and I'd set everything else up from my local computer via SSH. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get down. So from here, we're going to talk about setting up the server, and then we're going to be talking about syncing the data to a lineage build. We're going to be using EOS. We're going to be using a stock Google Pixel, and we're going to be doing an iPhone. And I'm going to be showing you how to access the data from a cloud. So with those, that is what is coming up in this long and lengthy video, but hopefully it is a good comprehensive tutorial, and we will see you at the end. First thing we need to do is download our NextCloud Pi setup. So we're just going to go ahead and download that directly from the NextCloud Pi website, which is linked down here below. And then you're going to go ahead and extract the zip file, which is going to contain the IMG image file. So the IMG image file needs written onto an SD card. Here on Linux, in many cases, just double clicking it will open up a dialog asking where you want to restore the image to. Here on Linux Mint, we can use the USB image writer. You could also use Rufus or Etcher or anything else that's going to allow you to write an image file onto a drive. Of course, here on Linux Mint, we need to go ahead and enter our administrative password. You'll probably need to do something similar to it, and just really double check you're loading it to the same spot. Some image writers on an IMG file will allow you to write it on your primary disk, so just be really careful about which disk you're writing to. Once you have this disk image written, your next simple step is to just go over, plug it into the back of the Raspberry Pi, and power on the Pi. Apologies for the crudity of this setup, but the reason we're using this particular Raspberry Pi for our NextCloud conversion is because the display outputs don't work anymore except on this little Raspberry Pi screen. So we're going to go ahead and give it power, and we're going to run the initial setup, which is just a few little commands we need to run, and then everything else we can run with a beautiful screen capture on a Linux device. So of course we flashed in the NextCloud Pi. It's going to start some basic SSH generation keys, and then it's going to reboot itself. And then we are going to get in and just change a couple of small things in the configuration. We need to rename the administrative user, and we need to enable SSH. And once we do those two things, then we will actually have the ability to set everything else up on SSH. So the first thing we need to do, let's go ahead and set our keyboard layout. Since we are not in the UK, I'm going to go to Other and go down to English USA. And keyboard shortcut, we're just going to use the standard USA keyboards. And then which user would you like to rename? We are going to rename the original Pi user. And I'm just going to go ahead and name it NC. And we need to give NC a password. Now this is going to be your root password to get in with SSH and to do some basic system administration. This is going to be different from our actual first NextCloud user. So now we need to go ahead and log in, and SSH is not yet configured, so we can't log in here with SSH yet. There's going to be a lot of changes and configurations that we would like to do, but the first thing I want to do here is just enable SSH. I forgot we need to do sudo ncp, which is going to be nextcloud pi-config, and this is going to run a nice setup that we can do a variety of different things with. Backup, system configuration, networking, security, systems. We're going to change our data. We're going to do everything that we need to be able to do. We're going to do from in here. But the first thing we're going to do, because I don't want to do everything on this crude setup nor on this screen, is we are going to enable our SSH. So let's go ahead and enable our SSH and just change this to yes. And what we're going to do from here, I'm going to go ahead and give it sudo access. And this guy here, put in our username here. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my username and my password. And then we're going to go ahead there and then be able to finish the configuration everywhere else. Go ahead and hit your start button. It's going to set it up. So it's changing the password. I think if we left some of the other things blank, it might have changed. But a few of these NextCloud Pi systems are a little janky, and so we're just going to go ahead and go from here. So now that we have SSH configured, I am not going to mess with anything else on this little crude setup. We're going to do everything else that we need to do inside of the SSH. So here we are. Let's just get back to this screen, and now we'll head on over to the regular computer where we can do better recording to show you the rest. The first thing I wanted to do is make sure that my Raspberry Pi is always starting up under the same IP address. And so here on pfSense, you can go ahead and check your DHCP leases. And every even basic consumer level router in the last 15 or 20 years allows you to do this. You're going to look for something related to DHCP leases. And you can see I have already set a number of different devices on my network to static IP addresses. So this one here is, you'll see the host name says NextCloud Pi, and this is the MAC address. So every single time this thing hits online, it's going to lock itself to this IP address. That way I have a static IP address on my local network. Any device connecting through my pfSense device can access the NextCloud Pi by going to that location. Now in NextCloud, or excuse me, in pfSense, we can go to the DNS resolver and we can set a custom domain name. So I set this at nclocal.com. Obviously, if you're anywhere outside of my network, nclocal.com goes somewhere. I don't know if anybody actually owns that thing or not. I just wanted to do something with a .com because some applications might really be looking for a qualified domain name, in which case we're going to go ahead and stick with that nclocal.com. And so that is what I am doing for that. So now anytime I go to nclocal.com, it will take me to the dashboard. Now, right now, I do not have everything configured. And because of that, we want to go in and we want to set everything up now. So I'm just going to go ahead and boot up a terminal. And we're going to go to SSH. And then we need to give it the name, which was NC. And hopefully now this is going to ask us if we would like to enter our password in here. So now you'll remember that we gave it the password, and you'll see that now we are into the configuration. So the command, remember, is sudo ncp-config, and this is going to give us our configuration panel. They said there's supposed to be a GUI configuration panel, which should be the IP address, 168.5.152, and then 4443. I have never gotten that to show up. They even specified HTTPS. And again, I've never gotten that to show up. So whatever that happens to be, I'm not sure if that was old documentation that I read or whatever else. But now we have a variety of options. The backup options are nice, in which case you can actually have it back up all of your data. You can send it via rsync or SSH or a variety of different places to a number of different spots. I personally am not interested in that right now. Right now we want to have a look at our basic configuration, and we want to go ahead and look at our where everything is at. So the NC administrator, so we want to change our current password for the user. And so our basic user is NCP. I'm just going to go ahead and keep with NCP. I'm going to give it a password. Okay, hit start. That's going to rename my administrator. This is my first user on the NextCloud instance. It is the basic administrative user, and it's also a user of the system. We can force HTTPS. That's good. We can reinstall NextCloud. So if you want to go ahead from here and reset everything, you can do that. Here's the change the password for the NextCloud Pi panel. I think that might be the one that allows us to get in there. But again, I've never been able to find that, even checking the documentation. And let's see. Oh, we need to add our trusted domains. So this is what allows you to use what we had over here, this NC local. So we're going to go ahead and enter our trusted domains. And again, these will only work if we are inside of our local network. So nclocal.com. Go ahead and do that. And this is going to set up a trusted domain. So if you try and access this without doing your trusted domain setup, then it's going to fail out on you. So I'll make sure you do that. Let's see. Change or view the current administrative. I think we've already done this one, right? Yeah, we did this one. We're going to cancel out of that. Now, the next thing we want to do is I want to make sure that we are using our data not on the SD card, but we want to make sure it's on the USB drive, because this is going to enable us to make backups a lot better, verify our data a lot more. First thing we're going to do, let's go ahead and format the USB drive. Yeah, I understand we're going to lose all of our data, and we're going to go ahead and give it a name here. I'm going to go ahead and give this the name NC Data USB. So that's what we're going to work with. And I could not actually find any documentation what the allowed data dir says, but I'm guessing that's data directory. So my guess is we want that to say yes, but I don't know for sure. Again, there was no documentation on that. So that says it's done. So here we're just going to see if there's anything else here I want to do, and nothing yet. So let's go ahead and head on over to our configuration. Actually, there's one more step I think we want to do. I can't remember. I think it's under System. Yes, we want to make sure that we have auto mount. So this way that anytime your system starts, because we're running everything off a USB drive, we want to make sure that our auto mount is going to set up so that our USB drives automatically mount themselves. So that says it's done. That updated our system files to allow us to auto mount everything. See if there's anything else under here I was interested in. Nope, we're going to head back. Under our configuration, now what we're going to do is we're going to move that data directory and the database over to the new location. We're going to go ahead and start with the data directory. And so what we're going to do with the data directory here is we're going to do, this mounts itself to media, and then the name that we gave it, which was NC Data USB. Just verifying it, NC Data USB. Make sure I didn't have any weird fingers there. And this hopefully is going to modify everything. It's going to set up the freshly formatted drive, and then it's going to create the data and then migrate all of our data around here. Let's see if it does. It says down here, I've gotten this error before. Your data directory is invalid. There's a file called OC data in the root of the directory. Cannot create data. But everything it said seems to work. So we're going to go ahead and move on, and we'll revisit that, and I'll let you know if there was anything else. Here's, do you want to move your database over there? I'm not as interested in moving the database over. If we have a catastrophic situation, I need to reinstall, then it's going to be a matter of resetting everything, dropping the files over, and then just making sure that NextCloud can find the new files. Or we can just put them on a desktop and then migrate them over with a desktop client. So I'm not as interested in changing the database, just the actual data and information. So let's see if there's anything else we want to do. I think that should be pretty good. Let's see if we can walk through anything else. Here's fail to ban. None of these are seriously interested because, again, we're not accessing anything from the outside. We're just doing a completely local setup here. Let's look under our networking, see if there's anything else in there. There's DNS, mostly DNS servers and port forwards, static IP address, which we're taking care of on our end, so we don't need to worry about that. Of course, we've already set up SSH. So let's go ahead and see if there's any updates to do. So we can do auto updates, automatically apply the updates. So nothing over there we're interested in right there. Let's double check, see if there's anything there. So it's running updates, downloading, performing updates. This is basically the first time we're using it. That just took a few minutes, so it says it's done. So now we are all good. And let's head back. Let's finish, and we're going to go ahead and reboot the system. Oh, I forgot we need to do a sudo reboot the system. So we're going to give that about a minute here to shut itself down, reboot itself, kick everything back on, and then we'll come back and see what that looks like in a moment. And it looks like we're back on, so let's go ahead and have a look at that. And remember, this is your user setup, not the root administrative user for the terminal, but this is the actual NextCloud user. All right, so here's our introduction to the NextCloud Hub. So you can see host your data, when and where you decide. Here's calendars, contacts, mail. Again, being a Raspberry Pi, this is not something that this is not like a full-fledged cloud-based NextCloud, the one that I use on a day-to-day. This basic purpose is to sync your phone data and a few other personal local files in a very easy-to-use platform that you can use locally. So you can see there's information. You can grab stuff from just basic downloads for the desktop apps. You can do F-Droid or Google Play Store for Android. You can download official apps from the Apple Store. And then you can walk through the rest of this stuff here. And let's go ahead and have a look at what we have here. So here's our files layout. So they give us a couple introductory files to have a look at. So here you go. Here's some NextCloud stuff, an introduction video. So if you want to see all that, there's some READMEs, some reasons to use it. Here's photos, and they have given us a couple of beautiful sample photos. We can have a look at what photos look like inside of our system. Beautiful photo. All right. Oh, there you go. There's some frogs, some wheat, there's some birds, there's some NextCloud team that brings us all to us. Awesome group of folks over there. Believe it or not, this image which is on here is serendipitously, I swear I did not pull it from NextCloud. This is the image I use on Writing Done Right. I did not pull it from NextCloud. It was actually, we found it doing some other stuff. Of course, here's contacts, and there's nothing in there right now. We're going to talk about how you can migrate your contacts over here. On Android, it's very simple. On Apple, you're going to need to use an app for that. And so from here, what we're going to do is I'm going to start populating some of the data that we have into the network, and then we're going to walk through then, now that you have a NextCloud set up, you get a new phone, how do you import this data in? So we're going to kind of go a two-way. You already have some stuff out on a phone. We're going to go and talk about how to put it out. And then you have information, and you want to migrate that to your new phone. We'll go ahead and talk about how to do all of that. So here we are on EOS, and this is, of course, a port of Lineage that has a lot of useful tools to allow syncing in. Of course, the EOS platform itself has its own tool, which itself is a NextCloud sync client, which makes it infinitely easier. I'm going to do the migration to NextCloud from this, but then we're going to talk about how you can do it on more standard builds that are not EOS, utilizing a Pixel, and we will also look at an iPhone. So we have contacts, we have a music album here, we have some images, and I think we have a calendar set up as well. So what we're going to do is talk about how to get these guys migrated over onto your NextCloud build. EOS is a very good build to use if you like the easier syncing, because they have these E accounts you'll see at the top. And the E account allows you to enter our information on our server. First, you need to specify your server. I think I might have actually had to enter the username and then specify the server. We'll kind of see how that looks. But as we entered the server details here, looking at our platform, then what we were then able to do is create the account, and then this automatically allowed the syncing of some information, albeit the way the system worked, it didn't do the files well. It doesn't have that figured out yet, but it does do the calendars and the contact syncing much better. And then once it's going to get the account added, we're going to have our sync options available. So now you can see the account 6, 7 of 8 items. Now on the screen, you'll see that it has mail and contacts and applications and notes and pictures and videos. There's an SMS for beta. I'm going to turn off the pictures and videos and the notes. Those don't actually work properly. Even if you turn them on, they don't work properly. But calendars and contacts here on EOS does work properly. Now you might have seen on that initial setup screen, we will highlight it on the Pixel, but you might have seen the WebDAV. That's actually how you're going to do it on most other Android phones. EOS is a very special build in this respect. We've synced the address and the calendars, and then we will go ahead and have a look at our web GUI and make sure that those are all in there in a little bit. Let's go ahead and create a couple of events over here, and that way we can just verify that they're going up. Just double check that it's on the NCP calendar. We will create the event there, and we'll just create another one over here. So now we have 2 events on our calendar. So now when we go in and push our sync button, we should actually be able to see those on the web interface for our new NextCloud build on the Raspberry Pi. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and move our contacts over there. So you can see that there's no contacts over there on that, and these 4 contacts are on the device. We need to go into the settings on the contact app, hit the export these as a VCF file, and then click that on your phone and allow it to import, and then choose the import into the NextCloud contact location. Now we go up to NextCloud, and you can see that now our contacts are synced up into the NextCloud. So you might need to use a variety of just downloading the VCF file. You can import those into a variety of different places. Now we go ahead and hit your sync now, and our contacts should now be completely synced up into there. So we exported them into the file, we imported them into the NCP, and that put them onto the NCP on the phone, hit the sync. Now that's actually going to put them into the calendar section or the contact section into our NextCloud device. Now, as far as our files, what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and click in on the buttons here, and we're just going to upload the individual files that we want, and then choose the storage locations where they need to go. Now, the newer versions of the NextCloud app are going to have the ability to auto-detect if file changes are made and ask you if you'd like to auto-sync those files. And then there are some folders you can automatically set to auto-sync into your system. So if you have your Photos folder auto-syncing into your system, anytime on a server-based, a cloud-based NextCloud, then anytime you snap a photo, it will automatically go up there. And anytime that, if it's on a local, you'd have to manually sync that. So we're going to go ahead and let those upload and see what happens next. Now that we have our data up into our NextCloud instance, what we're going to do here is we're going to use a stock Google Pixel and are going to show you how you can get the data from your NextCloud device into your brand new phone. So assume you have an old phone, you want to get away from Google. We've already walked you through the basic steps to upload all of your contacts. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about how to bring those contacts down onto your phone and sync everything. Now, we are over here using F-Droid because, of course, I prefer to use free and open source software. I'm not going to use the things from the Google Play Store, albeit a lot of the things we're going to be using are going to be available in the Google Play Store. The only things that we really have to have for what we're doing here is we need the NextCloud client. So if you just go to F-Droid and type in NextCloud, or you can find these also on the Google Play Store, and both of them are going to be inside of your admin dashboard on NextCloud. That's the dev one on the screen. We don't want that. So here's the NextCloud instance. Don't grab that dev one. That's for development stuff. You just want to grab the main production one. So that is downloading. There is on the bottom of the screen a NextCloud SMS synchronization. You can actually synchronize your SMS messages as well. I don't actually do that. I actually use Silence as my text message app, and that allows me to do an independent backup. You could do either or. That's up to you, but I'm not really into saving the SMS messages necessarily anyway. I don't save those for all eternity. We need to go ahead and allow to install from the source if you're using F-Droid. Of course, if you're using the Play Store, you don't have to do that step. And let's go ahead and get that installed. We're going to get ourselves signed into our NextCloud server, and this is going to allow us to simply grab all of the files that we need from the server and put those in. But that's not actually going to allow you directly to do your calendars and contacts. We're going to talk about that in a little bit later. We want to trust the certificate. This is because we're running it on a local instance and we do not have a valid SSL, but that's perfectly okay. Go ahead and approve the security warning as well. And now we need to log into the account itself. Now logged in, we just need to grant access. This is the Google Pixel 5a. And then we do, of course, need to give it storage permissions because it is specifically there to sync your files. So, of course, here is everything on the NextCloud. You can see all of the files and the folders that we had. So what we can do at this point in time is we can download things onto the device if we want to from here. Now, if you go into your device, you'll see the sync calendars and contacts and the contacts applications in there. If you click this, it's going to download the DAV-Droid application, which gives you the option of the Google Play Store or F-Droid. So the DAVX is what we need to allow the contact and the calendar syncing. This one tool allows you to log into your NextCloud instance through this application in order to interface with the contacts in the calendar application on the phone itself. We don't need tasks support, although you can do that later. NextCloud does support tasks. We want to give permissions. Of course, you're going to need permissions for calendars and contacts, whatever you're wanting to sync. I'm going to turn off the pause app, the pausing to disable the permissions after a while. Well, that can be a nice security feature. It can get in your way if you don't go in and click this button every single day. I don't. I usually just sync stuff as I need to. I don't update my contact lists a lot. But here we've go ahead and added the permissions for the calendars and the contacts. And then do you want regular sync intervals? Now, I would not recommend turning on regular sync intervals if you are on a local server, because if it tries to do the sync when you're not on your local network, it will fail. So don't even worry about doing that. I always just turn this on to do manually anyway, and I just do a manual sync onto my system anytime I encounter a case where I am making adjustments to my contacts. Let's go ahead and here and enter your server information. Then we have to manually approve the security exception. Go ahead and hit advanced here and hit the proceed button there. Now we're going to go ahead and hit the login option, log into your account again from over here, and we're going to go ahead and grant access. Now your account is connected and you will now be able to sync your information. We're going to go back and turn on the contacts. We're going to turn on the personal. Let's go ahead and hit our sync. And now we're going to pull up the contacts app. I'm going to hit the skip button over here because we're not going in there. You can see it says 4 contacts in your device. And there they are. Now our contacts are synced into NextCloud. So as long as we are making our changes into the NextCloud basic server, any changes that you do are going to be made over there. And see if you need to add a new contact here. Just go ahead and make sure that you are adding it onto your DAVX calendar. And then we can go ahead and create a new contact over here. And then that will appear over in the NextCloud instance whenever you sync the account next. Next, we're going to look at our calendar app. I do realize looking at this in post-edit here, I did forget to, on the calendar app here, click the button down there to turn on the NCP, which you see on the side panel there. The contacts that you, or the calendar events you saw there were things I did just testing the device initially, not syncing to a NextCloud instance. If I click that NCP over there in the panel, it would have pulled up the actual calendar events. I neglected to do that. The iPhone becomes a little bit easier in some respects because there's no separate application that you need to do your contacts and your calendars, and your files are actually pretty easy through the NextCloud app, which is free from the Apple Store. So you can just go ahead and download that and sign into your NextCloud server as you have in the past. And of course, all of the files are going to be available to you. So we can see here now that we are logged in, we can access all of the individual files that we had. And just like the Android device, you can click on an individual file. You can hit the save to download it, and you can access them. Of course, the big difference is Apple doesn't do the files independently, but it'll open up any file within any app that is necessary, of course. Syncing your contacts and your calendars with iPhone is actually quite a bit easier because you do not need an external app, and everything is built inside of the general account settings system. So we're just going to go on down to our settings, and under Mail, and under Accounts, you're going to go ahead and hit the Other button down there at the bottom. And then this says Add Mail Account up at the top, Contact in the middle, and Calendar on the bottom. We're going to hit the Card DAV. We're going to enter our server information here with our username and our password. And then you'll see that that's under Contacts now at the bottom. Probably want to save the password. I didn't do that. I had to enter it again later. Now we're going to hit Account. We're going to hit Other. And then under the Calendars, we're going to go ahead and hit the CalDAV. Now we'll enter our server information. Verifies all that. Wants us to ask if we want to add calendars and reminders. So we'll go ahead and exit out of there. Now pulling up the calendar app. Going back, you can see there, showed really quickly on the screen there, you can see that we had our calendar events coming up. There you go. Tomorrow we can see our Some event. And on Thursday we can see our other event, both from our NextCloud instance. And the other stuff is all, holiday things that Apple's giving us. Now we'll have a look at our contacts. And it says password incorrect. I think that's just because we didn't save the password. So we need to enter our password again. Now it says that we have our NCP card. And now when we pull it up, you'll see that our contacts will show up in the app. And now all contacts shows up. So now we can see all of our contact information inside of the iPhone. Not sure why it was not taking the settings the first time other than the non-SSL or the self-signed SSL, but that's perfectly safe when you're utilizing the situation here on a local server. So we'll go to the website here, so nclocal.com, or you can alternatively just use the IP address. The first time you go there, it's going to warn you a secure site is not available. HTTPS only client mode. Oh my Lord, this is so dangerous. Don't forget, SSLs are important if you are on the internet because they verify that everything is correct between all the different servers. When you're talking about a local network, it is not as important to have a valid SSL everywhere. And so just accept the risks here on your local network, and we'll go ahead and get ourselves signed in here. And once we get ourselves signed in, here's our current files, any upcoming events, and I don't think that there's anything scheduled over there. Here is our files page, so I can come in here and I can access all of the different files that I have. And I just want to see, did that one, oh good, that one file did finally make its way up. I was having issues with this, mostly I think it was the USB drive just because of how big that file was, but looks like it did finally get up there. And you can see everything else is up there in that server there. So these are, of course, all the files that came from the, they all came from the EOS phone. Of course, now that they are here, I can move them over onto the Pixel phone. Here is the contacts that we had. So here's all of our contacts. So these will now sync across every device that we have set up. And then under our calendar, and you'll see that our calendar events are over there, and those are the same events that we saw on both the Pixel setup and on the EOS setup. So now this whole system is running locally, and it gives us the chance to sync your calendars, your contacts, all that kind of stuff. Allows you to do that without having to tie everything on over into a big tech company. So hopefully this has been a beneficial tutorial here. And we'll go ahead and wrap up the video here with a few final thoughts. So thanks for coming along with me on this fairly lengthy NextCloud video. And I would encourage you to experiment with NextCloud, even if you're not sure you're ready to completely go with it. Use any spare computer, a Raspberry Pi, and try it out. Hey, you can even buy a $30 Walmart smartphone without a data plan, hook the guy up with Wi-Fi, and see how calendar and contact syncing works as you take the phone to various friends' houses, connect it just to see what happens. You can test local VPNs and stuff like that, utilizing that setup. But I'll tell you this, when you do this and take full control, and you'll have access to all of your contacts and your calendars, and you get away from big tech, it is going to very much boost your confidence to be able to move away from big tech in many areas of life. With that, guys, thank you for watching. If you've not already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that. Have a look over the website, switchedtolinux.com, for more tutorials and other tips on switching to Linux and taking out privacy. With that, thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.